Hello everybody and welcome to the Whiskey Dictionary. Today it is Friday and it is the first Friday in October, and because of that I am going to dub this whole month Scotchtober. And Scotchtober is going to be every single Friday I'm going to cover a different Scotch. So this time I'm starting off with the Glenlivet 12. Now you may notice that I've already got my drink poured. I'm making use of some of my new challenge coins / whiskey hats. So this one in particular is number 91. If you'd like to get your hands on this, send me an email. I'll put it at the bottom. Anyway, let's talk about the Glenlivet. So as I was reading about the Glenlivet, during the first paragraph that I read, it was about illicit whiskey, about a king, and about a badass with a couple of flintlock pistols. So I already knew it was going to be something that was totally in tune with what I made this channel for, and I was not let down. So let me tell you about the brand of the Glenlivet. So in 1822, there was this guy named George Smith, and he started making whiskey in the Livet Valley. And the Livet Valley is very concealed, right? It's very remote. And because of that, the customs officers and soldiers who were looking around for people illicitly making whiskey were not able to find them. Or if they were, maybe they took a couple of bribes to forget that they saw them. Who knows? It's all speculation. But the good news was that George had time to let his whiskey do what whiskey needs to do. And that's, ferment and mature and do all this stuff. So much so that it earned notoriety to the point where when King George IV visited Scotland for the first time, he asked for Glenlivet by the name. And loved it. So a couple of years later, George had the opportunity to go straight and basically legally make his whiskey. And he jumped on the opportunity, got himself a license to distill. And this did not make his competition very happy, because now all of a sudden he's distilling whiskey out in the open, and these other people are trying to compete making their stuff out in the middle of the woods. So obviously not a good situation to be in. And they threatened him. They said that him and his warehouse were going to burn to the ground. So George, started carrying a couple of flintlock pistols and made no, didn't hide them, made no false pretense that he would not use them, and luckily never had to, because things went fairly smoothly for about 50 years when he naturally passed away, and the distillery got moved over to his son John, who was training to become a lawyer. And he had a pretty good future as a lawyer, but gave it up to go run the distillery. Now John didn't do a ton for the Glenlivet except for one key thing. He changed the name from Glenlivet to the Glenlivet. And the reason he did that, kind of a common thread of the story is competition. The reason he did that was to quell his competition. There were a lot of other distilleries that were trying to claim that they were the one in the Livet Valley essentially. And this kind of got rid of all of that, because now they're the Glenlivet. And pretty good move, because by the 1950s they were providing about 50% of the single malt Scotch whiskey over to the United States, which I'm sure you would understand is quite a bit. All right, so let's talk about this whiskey, or more specifically about the whiskeys from the Glenlivet. There's about 14 different varieties, different expressions from them. And most of them are different age statements. There's all the way from 12 up to 25, and then there's a big jump up to 50. And there's also this other one called 1824, which is a 200-year celebration. Now, you might be thinking that 1824 plus 200 years is not, 2018, but it's more, there was a little bit of shadiness around exactly when it started. So either way, it's the 200-year celebration. Let's talk about the nosing and the tasting of this. And I'm going to take off my little whiskey hat here and give this a nose. So I do always enjoy the nose of this. This is one of the first whiskeys I ever ordered at a bar, and so for me it's definitely got a little bit of nostalgia in it. But as far as the nose goes, you're gonna pick up pineapple, which is a fairly rare thing to get in pretty much any whiskey, although I believe I've only ever smelled that in a Scotch. So you get pineapple, you get kind of a creamy vanilla, and you get some honey. And the one thing with the vanilla is, when I say creamy vanilla, I'm actually breaking those two apart. There's kind of like a creaminess, almost like a vanilla ice cream, and then there's vanilla, almost like a vanilla extract. But the thing with the vanilla extract is that if you were to take some vanilla extract, and I'm pointing over at my spice cabinet over there, as if you can see. But anyway, if you were to take that vanilla extract and smell it, it's gonna have a sharp smell to it. It's gonna actually smell so strong that you're like, oof, but this is just much more muted. But it's a different smell than if you were to smell a vanilla bean. If you've ever done the two, you know what I'm talking about. All right, let's go ahead and give this a taste. Cheers. So the first few things that you're gonna pick up are apple and then pineapple, at least for me. Then there's a solid backing of honey. And that's mostly what I'm getting. It's not complex for complexity's sake. It's just kind of a solid whiskey. So let me give you my overall. In my opinion, this is one of very few 40% ABV whiskeys that I didn't wish was a 46 or a 43. It's very well balanced at 40%, and it doesn't really leave you wanting more, at least not for me. So this is something I personally have some nostalgia for, so it's possible that my opinion is being tainted, but that's why it's my opinion, because it's allowed to be tainted by my own personal feelings. I think that because of its accessibility, the fact that you can find it at any bar, and you can buy it at any store, or liquor store, or you can generally get your hands on this for fairly cheap, and it's inexpensive. I think that this would qualify, in my mind, for a stock it. I think you should always have a bottle of this in your bar. And there's a couple of reasons. Number one, it's good. You know, this is definitely a daily dram. And number two is that this is super, super approachable for people that are new to whiskey. If you have friends over or family over who you clearly have a passion for whiskey, maybe you want them to share that with you, this is a good one to start them on. You know, bourbon or this. There's a few other scotches as well, but in general, if you care, check out that intro Scotch guide up there. But this one made it, and this is one of the few that I think is a great place to start. So anyway, this gets a stock it from me, and I think it's something that you should always have around. So thank you for joining me here on the Whiskey Dictionary. I look forward to the rest of Scotchtober, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Cheers. Next week, I'm going to be doing my Patreon pool episode, so don't miss that one. It's going to be Bowmore 15. Cheers.